before we do get started, giveaway down at the bottom. Go ahead, give it a like, give it a look. You know, do what it says. You can win a €30 Crossout pack. Welcome back to the test server for the final video before the patch goes live. There's been a bit of speculation about when we'll actually get this final, when we will actually get the patch itself, when that will release. Let me try to start out by answering that by saying that I have no idea, so don't ask. Either this Thursday or the Thursday after. Some people have been talking about Valentine's Day pack for the game, so that might be related to the new update, which means that it will probably release on 13th, or otherwise I'm personally gonna say around next week, because they said early February, but then the week after that. So that's probably within the next 14 days for everyone who's wondering. But today we're gonna try to sum up all of the things that we've seen so far, all of the stuff that I've covered. I'll throw that into this one video, and we're gonna do it like from the first server, then the second, and then to what we have now, and just discuss each of the patches by themselves. And then we're gonna see what actually made it through to the final test server, what was cut off along the way, and what was changed and all that stuff. So let's just get right into it and start with the first test server and what we saw there. We started out with hearing about the new rarity and a lot of new weapons in that new rarity. All of these weapons were put in there to reduce the gap between the rare and the epic stage, and was to help new players feel like it was a bit of a less of a grind. And basically all of the new weapons looked something like this. Let's just start from an end here. So let's start with a prosecutor and see what that thing can do. No damage perks or anything whatsoever. 120 damage. 120 damage for you right there. Next up, we have the Hulk. Hulk is a turret cannon. Let's see what the bullet velocity says. Oh my, that sound though. 134. 134 indeed. It's the Sinus, so let's go ahead and do that now. So the Sinus is a new machine gun. Let's just listen to it. Sounds decently dope. Sounds decently dope. Let's look at the damage here per shot. Go 9, 9, 9, 9, up till 10 damage per second if you hit all your shots. Next up, we have the Mace, and Mace, another very good sounding sounding weapon. I feel like the weapon really sounds great here. There we go. Let's see. 30, 30, 30, 30. So 30 damage per shot for this one. And then we have the auto cannon, which is AC-50 Storm. A decently sexy sound again. They're really improving here on the sounds. 16. Finally, we have the drone and the turret. So let's start off with the drone here. As I said. Pretty much the same, so you're gonna have to look at the actual weapon if you want to see the difference. And then we have the turret, which I'm then assuming will be the same as well. Yep. It does have a different sound though. Then after that, we have the new parts upgrades. And the new part upgrades is a new system that has been introduced, and it's going to replace the old part upgrade, which is basically you fusing 3 items, and then you get a part upgrade for that. For cannons, that could be 5% extra damage, 10% extra reloading, or whatever. And they're going to replace this with a system that will give us 2 to 3 perks depending on the item type. We will look at what this looks like now later on in the video when we get to the final test over here. But for now, basically what they wanted to do was just give us 3 random perks, and if you had an item that was already fused, then this item would get a buffed version of your old fusions. For example, if you had an Aegis with 20% cooldown reduction, then that would be 26%. So this has been changed and is now way different, but again, we're going to cover that when we get to the final test server. So the bonus does no longer apply for anyone who thought that. Then we had the cabin rework, and basically the cabin rework was based on 12 energy heavy cabins. So energy was based on the rarity of your cabin, so rares would all be 10. Specials would be 7, and epics would be 12, and this worked for every cabin. Besides that, they talked about a lot of changes with the mass limit and tonnage and everything like that. All of that has been scrapped as well. So that does no longer apply. Cabins will stay as they are right now for the most part. There might be a few stat changes later on. We'll have to see when we get those. Only thing that will change is the fire starters, the Steppenwolf, and the Dawn's Children. Those 3 cabins are going to become special cabins and therefore have different stats. For example, the Bat cabin will now have, I think it was 12 energy, and the Jawbreaker has 10, while the Pilgrim has 11, as far as I remember. We can actually look at it on the server in just a minute. Other than that, we also had the hover balance, and this was one of the most drastic changes that really got people talking, and the main reason for this being that hover seemed utterly useless. Later on, the devs went on to tell us that the change would not be as drastic as we first saw. So for those of you wondering, hovers are not gonna die out. That's very important to state, but we'll look at what they look like now later on in the video. For now, I'll show you what they look like on the first test server. Strafing should be affected. That is absolutely right. The way that they want to deal with this is strafing. Yeah, just put the hovers in line here, and let's boost forward and go and ram into that 100-meter. And there we go. Lastly, for the first test here, we saw the radar nerf as well, and the changes to radar was radars functioning as decor. This has later on been changed back and forth, and we'll cover that as we go, but for now they would just work to be shoot through. So you shot them with a cannon, you would have simple bullet tracing, so whichever part was behind would get struck by it and the explosion would happen there. So radar would sort of get neglected by explosive weapons. This does not count for scorpions though, which is also why you still see people use decor in plane wars, for example. But that was pretty much it for the first test in very short summation, and then we have test 2, which focused on some new stuff. And this new stuff was more on the new rarity. We now got some confirmation on perks of the new special rarity weapons. So basically all the weapons that has a rare counterpart will get perks. So for example, the fixed angle cannon will get a perk similar to the executioner, but a weaker version of it. But the synthesis, because it does not have a rare counterpart, will not get a perk because it's the first in the technology. That's pretty much how that works. And then we have all of the new weapons, and we also got some, stats from them. We didn't really see the final names and final stats, but we got an idea of what they were able to do. And let me tell you, some of it was really strong. Weapon now known as blockchain, first of all, dealt 1600, 1500 weapon damage per shot if the target was heated. So that one was a bit too high. And besides that, also the trigger, which was also quite strong. And we saw the nail gun and the lightning gun. We saw a lot of different stuff. So I'm just quickly going to show you my very short summary of each weapon here. Starting off with the nail gun, which is the new special rarity weapon from the new faction. This is a weapon that has 2 different firing modes. First of all, the weapon has the potential to be a very precise tap firing weapon here. This weapon can also go ahead and get charged and fire. So we loaded up with 4 nail guns here. The only thing we have to do is just once again give our little test dummy here a go and see how quickly we can take that one down. Next up, we have the plasma drill, a weapon that fires a ray of lightning or a ray of laser, and that laser will heat up the target as well as deal damage. It has 2 stages. While the laser is charging up, it deals damage, and once it ends, it sort of explodes in the same amount of damage. The base damage of this laser is 100. This is a triple laser drill setup. I want to just start a timer here and see how quickly we can chew through 10,000 HP. The next weapon that we are looking at is the plasma cutter. The interesting thing about it is, as you can see here, the projectile itself is rather thick. If I go ahead and shoot this cabin here, we hit him for 64. There is also the possibility that you only hit partially with the shot, and that will only deal a percentage of the damage on the target. Let's see how quickly we can take down this 10,000 HP and see if we can just near ourselves on a DPS. Finally, we have one more weapons test, which is the new lightning gun. It has 2 different modes, one which is a tap fire, and then there is an alternating firing mode, or an alternative firing mode, which is this, where you charge it. We haven't looked at the drone yet. Load up a single drone. It is a drone that you can send out. Now, the drones here shoot spark like projectiles, but it is very important to note that these will not act as a spark. It does not slow you down. Then we also saw more on the upgrades part, and now they actually went ahead and told us hence all of the plans to upgrade our parts if you've previously upgraded them. So for example, Aegis is no longer valid. You're just going to get 2 random perks. So these 2 random perks will be applied to your item when the patch goes live. And if you have like 5 water cooled Aegis, they're all going to get the same thing. So you might end up with 5 water cooled Aegis, which are really good or which are really crappy. If you have 1 fusion, the item with that fusion or all the items with those fusions will get get the same things, so you don't get 5 random ones out of that. So if you do have a lot of stuff fused, for example your hovers, you might be able to get first try like this 12 hovers that are fully fused and as good as they get. So that has some good to them and some bad to them, but all in all I think it's a very good change. Then we have the cabin rework, and basically the cabin rework has been cancelled at this stage. It's fully cancelled. It's not going to be changed at all. Then radar nerf, new suggestion for that one. Now limited to 1 radar per vehicle, and a lot of people were not too happy about this because it would ruin a lot of art builds where you may need 2 radars in order to make a build look good. This will be changed again in the last server in just a second. Then the hover tweaks. Only ride height this time, so no more, you know, strafing, no more. It's just back to what it was before. It was basically just a bit less ride height, but besides that, everything back to normal. Something was still broken though, because they were a bit sketchy. So they had to go back to somewhat, I don't know what they changed, but they changed something, so they partially fixed it, but they still felt a bit broken because they were still a bit sloppy and the acceleration was still a bit weird. So they also fixed that for the last server here, which is great. And then finally they talked about the clan wars change, and the clan wars change features safe leaks, which will come back. We saw the safe leaks for a short period of time, but the devs removed it again because a lot of uranium flooded the market, and I think that was the main reason. It just went crazy and the market partially crashed because of it. So some things happened there with the uranium. I'm assuming that's why. We're gonna see them back now, but with a bit more gradually increasing uranium you can earn, the higher you get. That's pretty much it for the second test, so let's cover the last one. For the last test, we actually have quite a lot of stuff that we should cover. Now, I would have loved to show you this on the new map, but bots won't move whenever I play this, so let's go ahead and try this one. So the new map looks like this. The map is called the Ashen Ring, and basically this is a particle accelerator, and as you can see there, we are always starting out the map with an experiment of that thing firing off a particle acceleration. And here are the new weapons in action. Just listen to the sound, it's absolutely amazing. And this map is actually also very, very good. And I know this is also the type of map that a lot of people have been asking for. A lot of people have really been asking for something that looks similar to King of the Hill kind of thingies. This is like full on Star Wars right here for you. But it looks great indeed. And basically much more of these maps. People are requesting new maps, but something that they have also requested is actually bring in some of these maps for the more competitive Clan Wars play. I'm not sure if I think this map is very Clan Wars suitable because it's so small. It's almost tinier than Old Town. But all in all, I think it's a very good map, and I think it will be a great contribution to the game. Next up, we also have the new weapons. We've seen some final damage numbers on them, so let's bring out this one because it's quite relevant for this specific thing. As I mentioned, 1500 damage on triple of these when you had a target fully heated up. So let's try to heat up this target and let's see what actually happens. See that 850, 850. So the damage has pretty much been halved, and I think that's a pretty necessary change. One sad thing about the fact that you changed the damage on this specific weapon here for bot chain is that they lowered base damage. And I personally do believe that 44 too low for a regular weapon like this. It's an epic weapon after all, and bursting 44 damage this slowly, I think they should have just looked at the perk and let it keep some of its base damage. There is still time, so it might happen at the end. I don't know yet. Then we also have the item upgrades, and the item upgrades functions a bit like we talked about 3 random upgrades for some parts, 2 random upgrades for other parts. For example, if you upgrade 3 of these cabins here, we can get construction, which is the construction part seems universal for everything. So 10% durability, 17% mass, and resistance to all damage by 10%. And these I've seen on pretty much all the items that I've tried to fuse. So this one is more specific for art type that you're using. For the cabins, it's always something about self-destruct, which is a bit weird as well. I don't really see why this gonna be handy for anything, but the 10% damage or the explosion radius might be good. And then we have usability finally here, which is very cabin specific, with 20% power, 10% tonnage, or 10% weight limit. Besides that, we also have for weapons 3 different perks here, and these are very depending on the type of weapons. For example, here for machine gun, we have time to overheat or cooling rate, as well as the spread while stationary, spread while moving. These can change. Aim speed can change. That's on rotary weapons. If you take something like a fixed angle cannon, projectile speed, recoil, ammo reserve, this is very also something that you see for a lot of different weapons. Go to the red chair, as you can see here, it has a bit more like the arbiter, the machine guns. There are a lot of them, and I think you guys should go explore them. For the mandrakes, we have something like explosion radius, rotation speed, we have explosion damage and reduced spread. So you kind of get the big picture of what you get here. So I definitely welcome this change, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. Then we have the radar, which has also been changed quite a lot. The final changes for the radars will be that your build can still be full of radars. They're going to work as decal works right now, so they will be shoot through, for example, for cannons, meaning that scorpions are going to benefit less from this than the cannons are, because the cannons can just shoot through as it is now. So a lot of hovers, especially like hovers, are going to take a beating if we don't find a solution to it. I've personally tried to work a lot with my builds and just switch out my radars for ammo, and it is doable, but you're still going to see these massive hover boats. The real question is, how are these going to function with the final hover changes? Because as you can see now, hovers feel pretty identical to what they do on the live server, if not completely identical. The ride height should have been changed a bit. I don't really see it all that much on my build right now. It does still feel like it's hovering quite high. At least not something that I find very intriguing right now. With the right build, I think you can still go over dogs quite easily. So all in all, the hover change doesn't seem that drastic, and I know a lot of you guys would have let the hovers disappear completely, but I do find this a necessary change to them, that they don't completely kill them off, because it's going to remove half of the player base, if not more, if they just completely remove hovers, because so many people are very deeply invested into them. Hopefully this will solve some of the problems with you just flying over a lot of small builds, but I do think that this is going to help some of it if the ride height is actually lowered enough. And then finally, and one of my personal very anticipated changes to the game, it's not the worst of the worst in the game right now, but infinite shield fusion can be quite terrible play-ins. They can be pretty annoying, to say the least. And they have a solution ready for just this. This is a vehicle with 4 water-cooled fused shields. And basically what they will want to do here is that if I pop this shield, it's going to run for the full duration. But if I then pop the next one, then this is actually going to suffer from diminishing return. And so is the third one. And diminishing return basically means that, as you can see, these shields run out very quickly. So when you have shields on cooldown now, your other shields will run out of charge quicker, or they will not run out of charge, but they will have a lesser duration. So for example, the duration for this one is currently reduced by 90%, simply because of the fact that the other ones are on cooldown, and it's 30% for each shield. So I don't know if this is exactly flat 90% if you have 3 on the cooldown, or if they sort of affect each other or something like that, but you could do the calculation. I'm not going to do that right here. You can sit and count. You can slow down the video, try to see how long this one is active compared to the other ones. But it does seem like it's not for a long time. The base duration is 4 seconds. But all in all, I think this is a very, very needed change, all the shields, in my opinion. And I know that it is going to make life just a little bit easier for the people who struggle with fighting infinite shield fusion, especially in clan wars. You see these people with just a bunch of shields try to protect their ally, their fusion. And it is a nice strategy, but it's also... it can be very hard to fight if you don't have the right setup. But besides that, I think that is actually the full overview of what we know right now. We're going to see a lot of new faction parts from the new faction. And basically the faction is based around being a construction worker thingy. And it's going to be introduced via battle pass. So the battle pass will release new parts for us each week. And with that battle pass, you can also buy a deluxe one, which will give you the first 10 levels free, or the regular one, which will give you the premium stuff. And the premium stuff is in no way more competitive. You'll just get finished weapons instead of the recipes. All the weapons, for example, you won't have to craft them, you'll just get them. And we have the item upgrade, we have the radar changes, we have the clan wars changes. Hovers flying lower will have a lot of new special rarity weapons just basically introduced that you will be able to craft through all of the different factions. These won't be introduced in battle pass, they will just be there with the new faction, as with the new or in the old faction. I hope this is all correct, and if it's not, then just wait and see for the live server. But that has been it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this gave you the full overview of what we've seen for the past couple of weeks. If there is any questions still, do not forget to leave them down below. Until the next one, see you guys, bye bye.